What up guys, I'm Maroc, and today we are mixing the Kid Laroi's new song Wrong that just came out this week. It's a fire song and I've recorded a cover to it that we're going to be breaking down. But first, I have a template of this entire project file in the description along with these original raw vocals right out of the mic. So I would suggest you guys go download those and then you can follow along with the tutorial, and that way you know how to do it for your own vocals. So I'm gonna play what we have here and then we'll dive into comparing it to his song and breaking down how I did it. So check it out. So it's a super modern pure C# hip hop sound that you've heard a lot, especially on the top chart. So actually I'm gonna open his and listen to his vocal mixing right here. So I tried to copy his vocal when I was recording, but I'm gonna show you the raw file right here and then the final, and we'll jump into the mix.
Tonight, better you know it. Tell me that you with it, gotta show me now.
And then this is the mix.
Tonight, better you know it. Tell me that you with it, gotta show me now.
So super leveled, super tight and big at the same time. Just a really powerful vocal all around. So let's dive into it. I have my mic on 2. This is FL Studio, obviously, by the way, if you're new to this. But it always sends to a little pre-comp here, which is just a compressor, RVox, and Autotune. So an RVox is a great compressor from Waves. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people use it. It's just a really good, simple compressor for vocals that handles most of the work for you. But I do have a pretty hard compressor on this to level it out. So I'll play it without the track and then with to let you hear it.
When you roam tonight, better you know. When you roam tonight, better you know it.
So you can see it's really cutting out those kind of spikes or anything that's unwanted in our frequencies. And then we have our Autotune, which is set to the key, obviously, and it has a pretty, it's basically all flex tune with a retune speed of 3 and humanize at 50. So it's a really like natural-ish sounding Autotune, and it works really well with the song. So obviously when I turn it on and off.
When you roam tonight, better you know it.
On.
When you roam tonight, better you know it.
You can see we're getting that tune that we need to make the vocal kind of radio ready. And I would say a tip to do tune for your vocals is turn down your volume on your headphones to where it's like really quiet, like if you were in bed listening to music, and then listen to your Autotune that way, because when you hear it quiet, you actually hear every little note that's not perfect. So I would say, like, if I listen to it now on my headphones are quiet.
I'm trying to get you when you roam tonight, better you know it.
Especially with the beat.
I'm trying to get you when you roam tonight.
I can still hear inconsistencies in the vocal, things that I would want to re-record the next day. But that's definitely something, a tip that I use to get the mixing and tuning right. So it comes into this chain next, which is some simple effects, and we'll go through these. I have a fruity limiter first off. Again, this is all in the preset in the description, and if you download this, right click on these chains right here, say File, Save Mixer Track State As, and this will save it as a preset that you can bring on any project, any channel, whatever, and that way you have this. So again, this is linked right here, and we have our noise gate, which is a fruity limiter. It's just cutting out any of the reverb of the room. I've got a super reverb B room, and you really need to cut that out. So it sounds more like you're in a studio here. But we'll kind of ignore that because that's really just cutting out that noise. All right, so the first EQ we have is the REQ6, and this is where we're starting to get into kind of mixing and processing the vocal here. So we have a pretty simple EQ. This is really what any vocal chain would have on it. Just to get it cleaned up, we have a cutting all the lows here at about 100 hertz and then some tubiness in the mic. And really what I'm doing is going in, turning up the volume and hearing the frequencies that I don't like. And I'm not searching for them, but I'm just hearing it, and I'm seeing that if I don't like,
I'm trying to get you when you wrong,
especially this right here, those are some of the frequencies that I'm going to be cutting. So listen for it, really kind of develop your ear for what frequencies you need to get out, and keep it at that. Don't do more than you have to, especially at your first EQ. So that's the REQ6, just doing a simple job there. Really not much of a difference, especially on YouTube audio, but I have a C6 next, which is a multiband compressor, and it's a dynamic, or not compressor, sorry. Or is it a multiband compressor? It's a multiband compressor, and it is the dynamic EQ of this chain. So this is it's going off the preset Celine Vox, and I've modified it a little bit. But what's great about this is if I play it, watch.
I'm trying to get you in your room tonight, better you know it.
It's adaptively shifting the EQ to the vocal based off the threshold that we set. So it's super helpful because sometimes you want highs, but you don't want to take them out for everything. And this is adaptively and dynamically allowing you to keep those in. So that's the C6 here. Again, keeping that tubiness out and keeping our lows in, because you do want to have lows in a hip hop song. My perspective going into it was you have to cut all the lows. You actually do want lows in your vocal. You just don't want too much. And it all is based off of your track here. So if we listen to the track, I was going to cover it later. I have an EQ on here. We're having a teeny bit of low cut because there was too much bass, and we're having a teeny shelf right here just to cut out right in the frequencies where the vocals are. But there's a lot of bass right there, as you can see, so it can get really muddy, especially if your vocals have too much bass. But you definitely want bass, and that's why I thought you should cut it all out, which you shouldn't. So that's the C6 doing a little adaptive EQ, and after that we have our Deesser, which, as you can see, will just be doing a simple DS. Sorry.
Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get you in your room.
Just a teeny bit of the harsh frequencies and cutting out all those S's and whatnot. So we have one compressor before we move on to our second half, and this is the RCompresser, which is a great simple compressor from Waves. -8 threshold, we're taking it down by 3, and it's a super quick attack and release. Again, we're bumping that gain a little, so I'll play this before and after without the beat so you can really hear what this is doing to the vocal.
Girl, I D&D your
Actually, I'll play a part with a little more dynamic range here.
with it, gotta show me now. Mix it with it, gotta show me now. With it, gotta with it, got
And listen to the low and mids too.
with it, gotta show me.
They're coming in. You can hear it's more full because it's leveling it out. So we are still kind of getting more from compressors. So if you're EQing something and then compressing it, it is going to bring that back up. So make sure you're kind of aware of that, or planning ahead if you EQ and know you're going to put a like CLI 76 going super hard on it. Which brings us right in, because we are using a CLI 76 on our second half of the chain here. And this is doing a super quick hard compression, really just like keeping that vocal tight, because if we listen to his song, his vocals are super tight, and so it's a lot of compression going on even if you can't hear it. And this is the thing amateurs get wrong, is they don't compress enough and there's too much dynamic range. You want to have dynamic range, don't flatten your vocal, but you do want it tight, and especially for this song it is tight. So you can see here, if I play, it's really compressing that, and it's getting a super leveled tone, just like the RCompresser was. So that's kind of just getting that extra tone to it, because this compressor has a certain sound. I'm using the Blackie, obviously, and that's where we stand right now. So we move into the SSL channel, which is a beast, and we have some simple EQ on here, just really kind of sweetening the vocal, a teeny bit of compression here, but we have our shelf right here at about 90 or 100, just to make sure we've cut out really the frequencies that aren't even in a vocal. So cut those out, but we're going to remove some of this muddiness because it was too muddy. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm really boosting the highs here, and I'll play it for you in a second, but the highs are going to be super sharp and piercy, almost too much, and you would be tempted to pull it back. But what I'm doing here is I'm adding air to it. Later in the chain, I'm having a de-esser, as you can see right there. So it's going to take out the harshness, but it's going to keep the air to the vocal, and that way we get a airy vocal that's not harsh, which is something that I really struggled with finding myself. Is I'm like, okay, their vocals, like Drake's vocals, are like Drake the rapper. Drake's vocals are super sharp and airy, but I don't hear like the piercing sound. And so it's airy, but they have a Deesser on top. So I'll play this before and after.
With it, gotta show me now. Mix your Hennessy with it.
And then the harsh.
With it, gotta show me now. Mix your Hennessy.
And you might seem it's too much, think it's too much, but again, always mix with the beat and make sure you have that as a reference. So if I turn it on and off with the beat, you can hear it fits in a little better.
With it, gotta show me now. Mix your Hennessy with it. With it, gotta show me now. Mix your Hennessy with it.
So that's where we stand right now. And I knew this going ahead that I would put the Deesser on here and even it out. And besides, the Kid Laroi has a harsh vocal anyway. Leading us into the next point, he does have some saturation on there. So listen. Okay, so he definitely has a saturator on there. I'm using the TR5 Saturator X. And if I turn it up, this really gives you the saturation tubiness that is more airy, and it's not the ugly one that my mic has. So the ugly tubiness. So listen to, I'll turn it up. It's like a distorted walkie-talkie sound. So I'm adding that, and that's just giving us a little bit of that kind of bigger range to our vocal to saturate it. Almost similar to what a parallel compressor would do. So the parallel compressor is probably what we'll do next. I have it sent, you can see here at the bottom, it's sending to the parallel comp at the default volume, so don't turn that down. What you're going to turn down is this mix knob to control how much of the parallel compressor you want, parallel compressor that you want. So the parallel compressor, if you don't know, is just like a brick wall super hard compressor to your vocal, and it's just going to even it out like as much as it can, and then you're going to mix that in a little bit to your fuller vocal. So we have cut, again, this SSL channel was really making it harsh, cutting out some of the lows for the airiness, but the CLA is adding it back in. And I knew a parallel comp is going to do that, so I kind of planned for that. The one thing is, you don't want to do too much of this trade-off. So EQ for the compressor, de-ess it, and then EQ that, and then compress that. You don't want to go back and forth. You want to do it all in the right order. That way it doesn't get too muddy, because if you're taking out and adding in frequencies, they disappear. They're data. They're in a computer, right? So if they're just keep getting chopped away, that's when your vocals are going to get too like amateur sounding, and you're going to be like, why is my vocal so weird frequency? It's not like a clean, sharp Abbey Road Studios recording, right? And that's because you're doing too much subtractive EQ and then adding it with compressors and taking it away with de-essers and whatnot. So just make sure to plan ahead on that type of stuff, but don't do it too much. And you want to really kind of know that ahead of time in mixing, or else you're going to go back and forth in your chain. So once we have this, I basically leave it alone once I've gotten the right sound, and I don't really go back and tweak stuff. So keep that in mind. Try to do it with your vocals, or else they can get really messy. So our parallel compressor, this is set to rock my vocal preset, which the ratio is all, so it's just smashing this thing. Here's our output and input, and if I play it with it on and off without the beat, you can hear.
With it, gotta show me now. With it, gotta show me now. With it, gotta show me now.
And it's adding a little bit of the fuller range. Now I don't want too much, and the reason a parallel compressor is on a different send is so that you can control that amount here.
With it, gotta show me now. Mix your Hennessy with emotions.
Right? So you'll want to listen to the track and mix that in for your vocal. So right now with the parallel compressor and the beat, this is what our vocal sounds like.
I know that we ain't getting along, but I don't want to see you in your room tonight. Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight.
Okay, so this is the point right now where before I would be like, oh, this vocal sucks. Like, okay, the recording's fine. You know, I was trying to sound like Laroi here, but it's like too harsh, too amateur. I'm not in a studio. My mic is bad. My mixing's bad. I'm done. And I'd move on to a new song or go on BeatStars or something, right? So we're going to fix that. This is the part where it can like make or break it. And we want to soften them out, but keep the harshness, but really just spread this vocal out and make it full. So the first step in doing that, we have our parallel compressor done, but we're going to go into our delay and reverb and whatnot. So I have just a half delay by H delay. Obviously this is the mainstream standard here, and if I turn it on, I just have the dry wet knob set to 7, so you're getting a slight I'll solo this so you can hear it.
See you in your own tonight.
Okay, it's just like one half repeat here. So you could do like an eighth of a bar and then a fourth of a bar and kind of like try to tweak those in two, but really I kept it simple with this. Laroi doesn't have much delay on his vocals at all, so I just kept half of it for this song right here until I moved on to, well, then I moved on to my reverb. So this abstract chamber plugin is fire. This is by Signal Dust. I'm pretty sure it's free and it's just like a beast. The sound is great. It's not the most robust thing, but it was one of the first reverbs that I got, and I've really stayed with it even though I've gotten other ones. So the pre-delay is set really long, and we have a really long reverb time. Here's some other settings. The great thing about this is you can actually EQ the reverb in the plugin. So you can see we're dampening 88 hertz and then cutting off at 2000 hertz, which is all that high end, really. I mean, you can go up all the way to like 15,000-20,000. So we're really making sure this EQ of the reverb is pretty confined. So if I play it on and off with the reverb, I'll play it with the track and without, but right now it's without the track.
See you in your own tonight. Girl, I D&D your
On.
See you in your own tonight. Girl, I D&D your phone.
This is when it starts being like, okay, maybe this is an actual decent vocal here. There's some things we'll do to like even it out, soften it, but this is sounding good. So we'll play it with the track on and off too. I'll just turn it on and listen to how it kind of spreads out in stereo. Make sure you're listening with headphones too.
See you in your own tonight. Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight. Better you know it. Tell me that you with it, gotta show me now.
Okay, so this is where it's starting to sound full. We've got our reverb here. But one tip that I would do is when I was mixing this, obviously I'm not mixing it right now, but always mix in mono, because this is the point where you add the reverb when you would switch to stereo. But if you're mixing in mono, listen to the difference it sounds like.
Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get.
And then stereo.
Girl, I D&D your phone.
Right? So you really get the chance to hear what your vocal sounds like raw instead of all the effects kind of muddying the track up. So mix in mono. It really helps you get the tone right, the volume right, and just the spread of everything right. And then of course, once you add your reverb, you're not going to really be able to hear it in mono. So that's when you switch to stereo. All right, so this is our vocal right now. And we have two more things to add up in this chain, and that's the doubler. So on his, if we listen, they're kind of spread out with a little bit of a doubler, if you can hear here. So if you close your eyes and listen to the song, I like to ask myself, where is his voice coming from? Right? Like, is it out here? Is it here? Where is it? In the best songs, you shouldn't be able to pinpoint where the vocal is. You shouldn't say, oh, he's like in my ear, or he's far away from the mic and I can hear the chamber he's singing in. You should be able to just hear the vocal, and you don't really know where it is, and that's the magic of mixing, where it comes in. So a doubler right here, if I turn it up,
Girl, I D&D your phone.
I'm using a basic doubler 2 here from Waves, and I'm turning it down a lot, so you get a little bit of spread, and it sounds less just in your face and more kind of evened out across the spectrum. And I'll turn that on and off.
Girl, I D&D your phone. Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get you.
So if you're listening in stereo, and again, I don't know how much YouTube is going to get this, but I can hear the sounds back here, and that's really where it is on the headphones. And that's more of the depth you're adding to your vocal. So that's what you want, again, to help not have a specific location where your vocal is, especially if you record it in your bedroom. So that's a little tip I like to use. Not a tip, a lot of people use that, but that's the doubler 2 by Waves. And lastly, we need a Deesser because our vocals are really harsher now. So if we turn off the beat, listen to what we have in terms of the harshness.
Phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight.
And then the beat.
Better you know it. Tell me that you with it, gotta show me now.
Okay, so the vocal is harsh. Not only do we have S's and everything we need to take out, but it's pretty harsh. And this is where we come back to the SSL channel, where I really bump the high end so that we can have the airiness. Again, there are plugins that can add air for you without you know, having to do this technique, but this is an extra step that you take away by doing this. So I like using this in my mixing. So we do need to take away some of the highs. So we're hitting a -22, which is a pretty hard deesser here. So if I turn it on and off, you're going to be able to hear the harshness of this SSL channel go away, but we're going to keep the air. So I'll turn it off and then on.
Phone.
Oops. Beat.
Phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight. Better you know it. Tell me that you.
So this is like the softener spreading out the vocals. And you noticed before, if we take off the HLA reverb doubler and deesser, this is when we were at the point where our vocals sounded like garbage. So
Phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight.
Right. So this is the part where we are going to quit. This was the bad vocal. And again, it's harsh. It is terrible vocal. But it was that harsh Kid Laroi sound that we're going for. And then we're adding it in, softening out with the reverb, spreading it out with the doubler, and de-essing it, which is just leveling it out. And right here, of course, you're going to fine tune this to your voice. So if you use this preset and you just put it on your vocal, it's not going to sound as good as it will for my vocal, because it's completely customized for my vocal. So each one of these things, I've explained how I do it and kind of why I'm doing it. So go through each one and do it for yourself. Turn on everything and go through the chain and tweak them, and then turn them on down the list and tweak those, right? And that way it's fit for your vocal. So the deesser might be more, maybe it's less, maybe you have less bass in your vocal or more than I do. So that's something you really need to consider when using the preset, or any preset for that matter. But now that we've leveled it out, we have ADLIBS that I'll cover, but I'm gonna talk about the mastering real quick. And so for the mastering, I have a Q10, which is this EQ, and I'm taking off really the highest end of the highs to get the piercingness, the sharp craziness out, and level it out more into a radio sounding mix. Again, on YouTube, you're probably not gonna be able to hear as much, but if I turn it on and off, listen. I could hear like the sound cutting a little bit in my headphones if I just focus on it. And that's something in the mastering that will help the beat not be harsh, the vocals not be harsh, and it all to blend into one sound. Okay, and then this is probably my favorite plugin that I have. And this is the ARTG mastering plugin by Waves. And really it's an EQ, and there's a little compression, little shelves. You can have a presence knob, which is air and whatnot, but this is a pretty simple mastering channel I have on here that really kind of just gives the vocal the polished sound, so the track the polished sound. So I'll turn it on and off. This is where you put it on. It's one of the extra just triggers that you're like, okay, this is actually sounding fire right now. So at this point, other than the ADLIBS, which I'll run over in a second, but this is the finished vocal mix. Again, we can hear his version. Right, so that's his vocal, and then we have ours. Tell me that you with it, gotta show me now. See you with emotions. I'm trying to let go. So for recording this in your bedroom, these are pretty minimal plugins. They're all real cheap, combined together, and you get a pretty good result, I would say, compared to his studio version with some of the best engineers and whatnot. So it's a pretty close result. Again, you guys download the preset if you want to use it or follow along with your own vocals. So let's just cover these ADLIBS real quick. So in the background, you can kind of hear, I heard some really faint ones at the end, and you can see the volume is automated, but we hear them in the song here. But I know that we ain't getting along, but I want to see you on your room tonight, girl. Right, so they're really back in the background, kind of spread out, and they give a lot of ambience to the track. So here's our ADLIBS with the beat. Okay, so with the vocal, those are mixed into the right volume, but what it is another noise gate right here, which we've covered, a really hard auto tune to get that really sharp feel, because when they're spread out in the background, if they're not perfect, you're going to be able to tell. But you can turn the flex tune up, and you really won't be able to tell there's auto tune on the backing track because they're so far back. But I have it harsh here because that's kind of his style too. So the EQ is a really harsh we got to just sort of slope. We're cutting out a lot of the lows, really branching that down, and then making sure to keep those highs. So with that, I'll turn these off and let you hear it. We're getting a really thin sound right now. We have a compressor and a multi-band compressor, and these are just the fruity plugins that come with FL. Here are the settings for these. Are adding a lot of width to the vocals. I'll turn these on and off. Or this one right here. So it's going from quiet to like so hype because of that super intense compression here. I have a Soundgoodizer, which is great, and I have a lot of C. So it's some limiter in there, there's a little distortion, there's compression and EQ in the Soundgoodizer. So you can hear it now with the Soundgoodizer. Really making it fuller, but it's also like a process sound for ADLIBS instead of just a full sound straight out of the mic. We have our stereo shaper, which is the thing that's going to bring it back here, and this is the default, but the knob of the delay is out. So if I change this, I got to turn it on first. So it's back here. It's like back here. There's no vocal up front. If I go back, you can see it's just right in the center. So this delay is adding that spread. It's delaying by like, you know, teeny bit of time. It's spreading out those vocals on each ear so that it spreads out in space is what it sounds like, because sound bounces off walls and whatnot, and that simulates it with this plugin. So that's that gives it the really wide feel. If we play it with a track, it's back here, but we need to fill that out, and that's with the reverb. And the reverb is another abstract chamber, pretty big, no delay really at all on the pre-delay, and we've got just a teeny bit of EQ. But I'll play this on and off. And if I solo it, it's just these big, powerful vocals. At the end, I do have, this is a built-in EQ into the channel here at FL. I love this because I can play with these frequencies. You can hear there were some really bad ones right here. So I made sure to cut those out, and it's just like a little last-minute thing that I'm doing as I'm running through my vocal. So these are the ADLIBS with the vocals.
Girl, I D&D your phone. I'm trying to get you in your room tonight.
And they're really back there. So overall, this is my mix. This is my chain for the Kid Laroi's Wrong. If you guys have suggestions for other songs or whatever, let me know in the comments. Also, make sure you download this preset, put your own vocals in it, but also tweak it to your own settings so it fits your voice. Anyway, so I'd say we got pretty close to his. Obviously, he has engineers and people mastering and whatnot in a studio, so his is obviously the top of the line equipment and people, but I think we got really close with this mix. So I'm excited you guys download the preset. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.